Sometimes everything begins not with an event, not with catastrophe, not with loss, not with love. Sometimes it begins with a breath, sharp, uneven, almost violent. He woke as if he hadn't been sleeping at all, as if he had been held beneath dark water, as if someone had pressed a hand against the back of his head and kept him there just long enough for panic to dissolve into surrender, and only then released him. Air tore into his lungs, his chest burned. His throat felt scraped raw. For a second he couldn't tell whether he was breathing in or dragging himself upward from somewhere light could not reach. His heart slammed so hard that, in the stillness of the room, it sounded separate from him. A second presence, a knock from inside, not rhythmic, not calm, urgent, demanding, alive in a way that felt almost foreign. He didn't move, not immediately. His body lay rigid against the mattress, sheets twisted around his legs as if he had struggled in his sleep. He listened to the silence, to the fading echo of panic, to the small mechanical hum of the world reassembling itself around him. He didn't know where he was. The darkness felt familiar, yet slightly misplaced, like a room remembered incorrectly after many years away. Shapes emerged in fragments. The chair in the corner, the outline of the wardrobe, the narrow slice of window, where night was loosening its grip. He had the strange sensation of arriving somewhere he had already left, as though time had folded and returned him without explanation. Then dawn began its slow ascent. Grey light crept along the wall cautiously, tracing the edge of the chair, settling over the crumpled shirt on the floor, revealing the faint texture of paint and small imperfections he did not remember noticing before. The world was assembling itself piece by piece, patiently, without drama. Everything looked exactly as it had the night before, only he did not feel the same. A quiet dissonance lingered inside him, subtle but undeniable, like waking in a familiar house after dreaming of another life so vividly that this one feels provisional. He pushed himself upright. The mattress dipped beneath his weight. The air felt cooler than it should have. He pressed a palm against his chest, steadying the rhythm there, waiting for it to slow. Gradually it obeyed, though not completely. The echo of urgency remained beneath the surface. He dragged his hand down over his face as though wiping away sleep. But this wasn't sleep. Sleep dissolves at the edges. This remained intact. He looked at his hands, young, steady, unmarked. He turned them slowly, examining the skin as if expecting contradiction. The veins lay beneath the surface in quiet blue lines. The knuckles were smooth, no tremor, no stiffness, no thinness of age. He flexed his fingers once, twice, watching the tendon shift beneath the skin. No map of decades carved into bone, no faint shaking when lifting imaginary weight, and yet somewhere in him lingered the memory of older hands. Thinner, slower, slightly unreliable when holding a cup of coffee at dawn. He inhaled carefully, testing the air as if it might resist him. His lungs expanded cleanly, his pulse strengthened instead of faltering. His body answered him without hesitation. A sense of reversal settled over him, quiet but immense. Then the phone screen lit up. The small glow cut through the dim room like a signal flare. Her name. Simple, familiar, unmistakable. The room did not shift. The light did not flicker. But something inside him dropped. Not panic this time, but recognition so precise it felt physical. Because he had seen this before. Not in a dream, not in imagination. In memory, in a life already lived and completed. He knew the weight of this second. He knew how easily it could be dismissed, how ordinary it appeared from the outside. A message, a hesitation, a delay small enough to justify. If anyone had once asked him whether he believed in second chances, in time bending, in the strange elasticity of consequence, he would have smiled and redirected the conversation. He was a practical man. He trusted numbers, data, cause and effect. He believed preparation prevented collapse. He believed emotion was useful only when contained. He believed control was safety, and safety was maturity. But sitting there now, dawn spreading quietly across the wall, the phone glowing in his hand, none of that logic made the moment lighter, because he knew. He knew what would happen if he put the phone down. He had already lived the silence that followed. He had felt the slow widening of distance, the rationalizations, the quiet reshaping of a future around one small act of restraint. The knowledge did not shout, it did not threaten. It simply waited, steady and certain, asking him whether he intended to choose it again. He had walked that future year by year. The message preview glowed softly on the screen. "You've gone quiet. I'm worried. Please call." It had been sent hours ago. Simple words. No accusation, no demand, just concern. He had lost his job 3 days earlier. 3 days since the meeting in the glass conference room. 3 days since the carefully arranged chairs, the folded hands across the table, the rehearsed sympathy in a voice trained to sound human. 3 days since the cardboard box, the polite handshake, the escorted walk past desks that suddenly felt unfamiliar. 3 days since something inside him had slipped, not loudly, but decisively. He had told no one, not yet, especially not her, because losing work felt like losing structure, losing shape, losing definition. The title had not just paid his bills, it had outlined him. It had given him measurable edges. Without it, he felt blurred. He told himself he would call when he had a plan, when he had already applied somewhere, when he could speak in strategy instead of uncertainty, when he could present the loss as temporary, controlled, already in motion toward repair. He told himself he was protecting her from worry. But beneath that reasoning was something harder to admit. He was protecting himself from being seen without armor, from being observed mid-collapse, from hearing concern in her voice and feeling smaller because of it. In the other life, the one he remembered with uncomfortable clarity, he did not call. The first day, it was late. The second day, she was probably busy. The third day, silence began to settle like dust. Not dramatic, not explosive, just incremental. He told himself space was respectful. He told himself restraint was maturity. He told himself strength meant absorbing difficulty privately. With each hour, the distance widened invisibly. Words became heavier the longer they waited. The phone transformed from a tool into a mirror. He would pick it up, unlock it, read the message again, set it down. Tell himself he would respond tomorrow when he sounded steadier. Tomorrow became a pattern. And patterns harden quickly. Eventually the urgency dissolved, the message lost its sharpness, concern faded into something quieter, then into something neutral, and then into absence. They spoke again, eventually, carefully, politely. But something subtle had shifted. A thread that once felt alive now felt negotiated. The rupture had not been loud enough to name, yet deep enough to redirect everything that followed. In that life, things still worked out. Respectably well, he found a new position, better even. Higher salary, broader responsibilities. An office with windows stretching over the city like proof that ascent compensates for loss. Colleagues admired his composure, his ability to absorb pressure without visible strain, his measured tone, his disciplined restraint. He became dependable, consulted, reliable, the man who did not react too quickly, the man who did not expose doubt. He learned to move with deliberate economy, to pause before speaking, to calculate before deciding. Control became not just a skill, but an identity. It protected him, it insulated him, it impressed others, and gradually it replaced something softer he had once carried without effort. He married, not impulsively, not out of loneliness. She was intelligent, grounded, calm in a way that felt sustainable. Their conversations were thoughtful, their disagreements civilized, their plans precise. They built a life that made sense, an apartment with clean lines, vacations scheduled months in advance, dinner parties where conversation flowed politely, and laughter never climbed high enough to fracture composure. Nothing burned, nothing cracked, nothing spiraled. It was safe, it was stable, it was correct. And yet sometimes, in the quietest hours, when the house was still and the city lights pulsed faintly beyond the window, something hollow echoed beneath the structure. Not pain, not regret, just an absence shaped exactly like something he had once almost chosen. He would wake abruptly in that other life, just as he had this morning, and stare at the dark screen of his phone. No messages, no urgency, no one asking him to leap. He told himself this was adulthood, that stability was superior to intensity, that passion was unreliable and unpredictability expensive. He repeated this often enough that it began to sound wise, almost true, but not entirely. There were small betrayals, passing a narrow cafe and slowing without knowing why, hearing laughter too bright, too uncontained, and feeling something tighten low in his chest. A memory not of a person, but of a version of himself that had once answered quickly instead of correctly. He saw her once, years later. She sat near a window, sunlight caught in her hair, leaning forward as she spoke. Her hands moved when she talked. Her laughter arrived fully formed, unapologetic. She looked alive in a way that could not be measured or optimized. She noticed him. For a fraction of a second, everything stilled. No accusation in her gaze, no resentment, only recognition of what had been possible, of what had quietly rerouted. He smiled, nodded, left first. He always left first. Old age did not strike him violently. It accumulated. A slight tremor when lifting a cup, a pause at the top of the stairs to steady his breath. Dawn no longer promised momentum. It suggested inventory, years layered over years, achievements catalogued, risks avoided. He sat one morning by the bedroom window, watching the same pale light climb the wall as it always had, and a clarity arrived so simple it felt merciless. His life had not failed, it had narrowed. He had optimized safety, minimized exposure, eliminated variables. He had engineered stability so thoroughly that nothing unpredictable could enter. Including wonder, he traced it back, not to the wedding, not to the promotion, not to any framed photograph marking my achievement, to 1 second, the phone in his hand, her name illuminated, the tremor in his chest, the decision to remain composed instead of vulnerable. Everything had pivoted there. When his heart finally stopped, years later, quietly, in a room filled with soft mechanical sounds, there was no terror, only understanding. He saw the architecture of his life clearly, every careful step, every calculated silence. And then there was darkness. But the darkness was not empty. It held shape. It held weight. It held memory. He was not shown decades. He was shown one frame. This room, this bed, this dawn. His younger self sitting upright, phone glowing in his hand, suspended in hesitation. He understood then that this was not recollection. It was return, not punishment, not miracle, opportunity. The moment before direction hardens into destiny. And now he sat there again, young, pulse steady, hands unmarked by time, the message still waiting. He could feel both timelines pressing against him like opposing tides. In one, elevation, reputation, composure; in the other, uncertainty, exposure, something unguarded and alive. Fear sounded rational. Fear said stabilize first. Fear said protect what remains. Love sounded reckless. Love said speak now. Love said let yourself be seen before you rebuild yourself into something impressive. Silence was no longer neutral. He knew that now. Silence was an action disguised as restraint. Inaction was direction disguised as patience. The weight of knowing did not crush him. It clarified him. The future was not abstract. It had already introduced itself. He opened the message fully. You've gone quiet. I'm worried. Please call. Please. There was something disarming in that word. Not pressure, not accusation. Trust. Trust that he would respond. Trust that he would choose presence over pride. He felt the familiar reflex rise inside him, the instinct to wait, to compose himself, to calculate tone and outcome before acting. In the other life, that reflex had won. It had sounded intelligent, responsible, mature. But now he recognized it for what it was, fear dressed as discipline. He pressed call before he could negotiate with himself further. The ringing filled the room, each tone measured, fragile, like stepping onto thin ice and choosing not to look down. He did not know what she would say, did not know whether 3 days had already reshaped something delicate between them. He only knew that placing the phone back on the nightstand stand would recreate a future he understood too well. Hello? Her voice was thick with sleep, unfiltered, real, not prepared, not performing. In that single word lay the entire architecture of another possible life. He swallowed. I'm sorry, he said. The words were simple, unguarded. I lost my job. Silence followed, not sharp, not cold, just absorbing. He forced himself to continue before doubt could intervene. I didn't tell you because I was afraid. I thought I needed to fix it first. I didn't want you to see me like that. Another breath on the other end. Then, softly, you're an idiot. No anger in it, only relief loosening something tight. I don't need you fixed, she said. I need you honest. The sentence moved through him like warmth returning to numb fingers. He closed his eyes. Behind them, the alternative life loosened its grip. Come over, she added. Happiness, he would later understand, does not arrive like triumph. It arrives like cold morning air against bare hands, like catching a bus you thought you had missed, like a door opening before you have perfected your apology. They did not become extraordinary. They became intertwined. There were arguments about money, long nights of doubt, moments when fear resurfaced and whispered that composure would be safer. But they spoke. When he panicked, he said so. When she felt uncertain, she admitted it. They chose exposure again and again, not because it were comfortable, but because it was alive. Years later, a small cafe stood on a quiet corner. Not glamorous, not celebrated, but real. It smelled of coffee and bread and something warm that had no name. Photographs lined the walls, imperfect, mid-laughter, caught in motion. Some days it nearly failed. Some nights they sat at a table after closing, counting earnings in tired silence. But even in exhaustion, there was presence. Nothing optimized, nothing curated for approval, just lived. Time moved as it always does. His hair thinned, his hands eventually trembled, his heart weakened. No decision erases mortality. But meaning changes its weight. In a hospital room filled with soft machine light, he felt her hand in his, warm, steady. There were no alternate timelines flickering at the edge of his vision. No quiet inventory of what might have been. Only the simple fact of a life fully entered. The monitor's tone lengthened into a single, unwavering sound. Not empty, complete. Because life is not measured in years, not in promotions or square footage or applause. Life condenses into seconds, into decisions, into the quiet moment when fear offers safety and love offers risk. A phone may light up 1,000 times, but once, only once, it will hold the version of you that defines everything that follows. The light will climb the wall either way. Morning will arrive regardless. Time will move forward whether you hesitate or not. The only question is who you become in the second before you move with it, and whether, when your hands finally tremble with age, you will recognize the path behind you, not as safe, not as correct, but as yours.